men's basketball coaches conference. All lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. If you should need assistance or would like to ask a question during the conference call, please press star then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. To withdraw your question, press the pound key. I will now turn the call over to Mike Kern. Please go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Stephanie. Let's go ahead and get started with our first coach. It is Greg Lance, Indiana State. The Sycamore's playing.
I've been on hold. I'm going to have to call you back.
Hello, Greg.
His line is disconnected.
Okay. We'll have that. He did say he was going to call back, so he'll call back. Indiana State opening up this week against Northern Iowa. Wichita State on Wednesday, followed up with a game at Bradley on Saturday. The Sycamores can finish anywhere from 3, 4, and 5 in the conference tournament seedings, and we'll hope for Coach Lansing to join in.
Coach Lansing is rejoined.
Good morning, Greg. Sorry about that mishap there.
This thing's driving me nuts, man. I don't know if I'm the only one that has problems with them or not. But
you get to work all the bugs out since you're the first one on.
Yeah. I'm usually the dummy mode anyway. So.
Good morning to you. Your first game of the week, Wichita State on Wednesday. Shockers playing very well right now and have been all year long. Talk about the game on Wednesday, and we'll open up with some questions.
Well, I mean, they're truly one of the best teams in the country and as well coached as anybody, and we all know that. Everybody that's played them, we started the game decent over there, and we're up 14-10, and it was never a game after that. They amped it up, and we couldn't answer. And tell you the truth, I'm not sure we can beat them Wednesday night, but we're going to try to compete a little harder than we did over there, but they're a true team. They play every possession. They play both ends. They're always well prepared, and they play the right way.
Thank you, Greg. Let's get down to the questions for Coach Lansing. Questions from the media.
Please press star then the number 1 to ask a question. Star then the number 1. Your first question comes from Paul Sullentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Hello, Greg. I'm
Hey,
curious.
Paul.
I'm asking coaches today about how the ball screen offense deal became such an overwhelming, just everybody seems to run it almost. When did that start? When did it start to become so popular? How has it kind of evolved over these last, 10 years or so?
Well, a lot has to do with the foreign influence with ball screening, and then with the NBA, and before really coming here as the head coach, I was a True Motion with Coach Alford and Coach Waltman, and then you inherit a guy, recruit a guy like Jake Odom, and that's a pretty good way to play. So now it's really all you see nonstop, and at our level, it's difficult to guard. There's counters to everything. People are doing them different ways and using them different ways. I just hope that we can. Like we have to watch all summer with the AAU stuff. People aren't teaching guys how to play off it. I think it's important for the younger high schools and the younger ages that everybody's just doing that. But, hey, let's teach them how to use it, how to read it, and so they can keep getting in our league. And we're looking straight at one of the teams that uses them as good as anyone in the country in Wichita. So it's pretty prominent.
And why? What's the advantage? Why has it become so common across college basketball?
Well, people are off the dribble a lot now, and Coach Knight never wanted to run another defender at the ball, but you're picking on the ball, so they have to try to adjust to it. How they're going to guard it. It makes it hard for the guy that's on the ball to continue guarding it, so it gets teams a little bit in a closeout situation or a scramble mode, and it's not easy to defend, especially against the teams that have guards like a Fred VanVleet and that can pass off it, shoot off it, or create for others.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great. That's your only question today. Thanks for your time, and good luck against Wichita and later in the week.
All right.
We'll see you later. Thanks, Ray. Next scheduled coach is Ben Jacobson of Northern Iowa. We're holding for Ben, trying to get a hold of Jake, and we'll have him on momentarily. Northern Iowa's first game of the week is Evansville on Wednesday. They close out the week for the game at Wichita State. That game is featured on ESPN. It will mark just the fourth game in league history in which two 25-win teams will play one another. It's the second time in league history that it will have happened during the regular season. The only other time was in 1951 when Oklahoma State and Bradley met. Both teams had 25 or more regular season wins. We do have Coach Ben Jacobson of Northern Iowa on the line with us. The Panthers, as I mentioned, opened up their week against Evansville in Cedar Falls on Wednesday. Morning, Ben.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Sorry I'm late calling in.
That's okay. Let's talk about Evansville first, and then we'll open it up for some questions when you preview the game against the Aces this Wednesday.
Yeah, they put together a really good year. You know, I think everybody in our league is well aware of, and got themselves in position to get the postseason play, and in position with a week to go to possibly get that 3 seed. So you know, they've done a bunch of really good things this year. You know, obviously Valentine and Big Mock, as I call him. I think like the rest of us have a hard time pronouncing that last name, but the big fella's just he's improved so much and doing such a good job for their team. And you know, we played him the first game of the year, Mike. So you know, it's been a long time since we've seen him on the court. Obviously, I've seen him on film some and dug into it some more yesterday. But you know, as I talked about with Marty all the time, you know, they compete as hard as everybody that we play against, and they run their stuff as good as anybody in the country. So we know it's going to be a hard game like it always is.
Thanks, Jack. Let's get to the questions now for Coach Ben Jacobson.
Your first question comes from Andrew Lowe with the Des Moines Register.
Want to ask you, with rankings and the way you guys, and now you might be a top 10 team, has it ever felt like you guys have more of a target on your back than you ever have before? And do you think with a veteran crew and Seth and this guy, that this team was ready to handle that because of their experience?
Yeah, these guys have done a great job with that, Andrew. There hasn't been, you know, there really hasn't been a day at practice where I've felt like, as a group, they've gotten sidetracked or they've gotten into the fact that we've been ranked or that we are ranked or that the ranking continues to get better. And I think it's a direct result of having the 5 seniors and having 3 juniors on this team and having guys that just want, you know, I talked about it a little bit last week, you know, they just want to keep getting better. You know, they want more. There hasn't been a point in the season where, you know, I felt like they've been satisfied with a particular game or a particular win or where we're at and some of the attention that we're getting nationally. And I think that's what's helping the most is they want more.
And with that said, being any so-called non-BCS program, what is a crack into the top 10? Is that maybe even a little more significant because, you know, frankly, you start the season unranked? Does it mean maybe a little more in your opinion?
You know, I guess the only thing I'd say about it, Andrew, is that excuse me, you know, maybe just another, you know, maybe another line in the sand, if you will. You know,
yeah.
Getting in the top 25 was a big deal when we did it. Being ranked this long has been great. You know, really proud of the guys for it. and then that's the only thing I'd say is, the top 10 is the top 10. It's a pretty awesome deal.
Cool. Thanks, Coach.
Your next question comes from Paul Sulentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Hey, Ben, preparing for Evansville, is it different, harder than the other 8 teams because they don't run the ball screen offense like so many other teams do around college-based basketball?
Yeah, that motion offense has always been tricky to get ready for. I guess the obvious with it, Paul, that you don't know exactly what cut is coming. You don't know, when it is a lot of ball screens. You can load your defense to that side of the floor. There's some things you can do when teams run set plays, when teams run the ball screen actions that you can't do against Evansville. And not only do they run the motion offense, which is different than I would agree, different than all the teams that in our league right now. But they do it. I think they do it as good as anybody in the country. And you combine those two things, and it's a little different scout. And you throw Ballantyne in there as one of the best scorers, and now the big kid has come so far, and the other guys have some experience. This is as hard a team as to prepare for that Marty's had here in a couple of years.
How has your offense evolved as far as using the ball screen offense? Has it always been something you've done, or is it something you've kind of used more and more, over the recent seasons?
Yeah, we went to it. 5 or 6 years ago, we went to doing more of it when Kujoa Halegba was our point guard. And we went away from running set plays every time down and got more into it at that point. Just felt like he had the ability to do some things with the ball screen and create enough, and he was big enough and strong enough that and had a good enough feel where we could get a lot of offense out of it. And we've continued to do that with having Dion and having Wes, and we've continued to run a lot of the ball screen stuff. Although, this year, Paul, we've gone back to running some more of the set plays and some of the counters to mix in with the ball screen. So I would say this year we've probably backed off some of the ball screen stuff and added some more of the set plays.
Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Daniel Alar with Evansville.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned Miscavicius for UE. I know he and Tuttle were matched up quite a bit the first time they played. Could you, I guess, compare and contrast their styles of play and also tell us what you're looking out of that matchup?
Yeah, again, and I hope he doesn't take offense to it. Big Mock, as I've called him, he's improved so much, and the first difference, he's got some size that Tuttle does not have. He's a legit size, legit length, and his mobility has increased and improved so much that he's getting a lot more done now. And Seth obviously is a little bit more mobile, has the ability to stretch the floor. He drives it. He's going to drive it more. But there's enough give and take there where it makes for an intriguing matchup, and it makes for a great matchup.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Yep, thanks.
Your next question comes from Carson Teague with the Waterloo Courier.
Hey, Jake, with Evansville coming on Wednesday, when you look, they're your only loss from the first game. When you look back on that, now that you're 15 games out and have a 15-game winning streak, just how do you look at that first game?
Yeah, in going back through it, Carson, we came out of the gates strong. Had the 28-12 lead. Thought we were really defending them great. We turned it over a couple times. Then in the second half, I didn't think our defense was as strong as it needed to be. I thought Evansville did a great job of getting the ball where they wanted to get it, in some spots for Ballantyne, with some stuff going to the basket. When we took that away, they found a couple of shooters, and those guys were open. I just thought their offense was better than our defense in the second half, and we're going to have to do a much better job over the course of the 40 minutes. Because early in that game, our defense was good. It was very good. But when it counted in the second half, their offense was better than our defense.
Yeah, and because it ended up as a loss, do you look at that at all like a learning experience? And maybe if that wasn't a loss, and maybe lose one of the other 15 here?
I'm not sure. I guess what may have happened had we held on to win that one. What I can tell you though about the guys, and I know you know this, I guess Carson as well as I do, being around them a bunch. They've done a good job, with the VCU game, the Evansville game, of coming back and getting better at a couple things. But they've also done the same when we've won some games. There's been some things, as there always are, in each game. No matter how well we might play, we've had some things that we've had to look at and find a way to improve. And I think, again, going back to the fact that we've got the 5 seniors and we've got 3 juniors, I think one of the things those guys have just done a terrific job of is making improvements and getting better, no matter what the result has been.
All right, thanks, Jake.
Yep, thanks.
Your next question comes from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
I know we're talking about Evansville quite a bit, but Saturday, the whole game day scenario at Wichita and all that, can you, in your years in the league, can you remember a game like that or a scenario like that that is going to attract as much attention or maybe be as historic in some level as that game will be?
Yeah, boy, Harry, I guess I hadn't thought about it. Obviously, I am aware that game day is going to be there, and the year that Wichita is having and the year that we're having. But I guess I hadn't given any thought to how it would stack up with some of the previous years, or how it'll be viewed as we get a couple years down the road. For us, and I know that everybody gets this, but for us, we got to do what we can today to get ready for Wednesday. And at some point, I'm sure people will be able to figure out where they place Saturday's game as compared to some of the bigger games in the history of our league.
All right, thanks, Ben. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Eric.
Jake, that was your last one. Thanks for your time this morning. Good luck this week.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
All right, bye-bye. We have Coach Ray Giacoletti of Drake with us. Drake coming off a big win against Missouri State yesterday. The Bulldogs this week have Loyola at home, and then on Saturday we'll play at Southern Illinois. Morning, Coach.
Morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing fine.
Good. Let's talk about your game against Loyola, and then we'll open it up for some questions for you. If you could preview the Ramblers on Wednesday.
Yeah, well, Porter's got his team playing very well, and they play so hard and defensively very sound, and so I think done a really good job too, just keeping it together without having Milton there as many games as he's missed. So great tribute to that team and finding ways to get better with one of their better players, being out of the lineup for a number of games here. So should be a good game, and I think we're getting better at the same time, and our group will give a good fight. I know that.
Thanks, Coach. Let's get to the questions now for you from the media. Questions for Coach Ray Giacoletti.
Please press star, then the number 1. Again, star, then the number 1 to ask your question. Your first question comes from Todd Hefferman with the Southern Illinois newspaper.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about your bench and how big a difference that's made for you in some of the games this year?
Yeah, we've had some guys come off and be able to do a number of different things. And I think of Jordan Daniels, a guy that can come off the bench and score the basketball for us. I think Ori and CJ, the 2 freshmen, have given us lifts, one defensively, one more offensively here in the last month. Chris Caird, when he can, get a clean look at the basket, somebody can stretch the defense. So we've had some people be able to come off the bench and help us, and that's, made a huge difference with those starters not having to play so many minutes.
And you haven't made a ton of changes to your starting lineup. With how much have you talked about that when your starters have struggled to moving one of those bench guys up there, even though you've kept most of those guys on the bench because you like their impact?
The biggest change has been I don't know what how many games ago it was. I think it was the Bradley game at Bradley. Inserting Carl Madison in the starting lineup and having two guys, 2 points basically, and taking a little bit of the pressure off Reed. Not only having to try to make others better, but score the basketball himself. I think it's really was ideal for him at that time of the season. And Carl is a better defender on the ball. Carl's assist-to-turnover ratio is 41 assists to 17 turnovers right now within league play. He's really has made others better. And I think that combination of those two, just taking the ball out of Reed's hands a little bit, has helped him improve his ability to make others better and help him sustain his scoring ability.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Paul Sullentrop with the Wichita Eagle.
Ray, how have you seen the ball screen offense evolve through your career to where now it seems like it's almost everybody runs?
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the old guys now. This is year 30, so I mean, you had a ball screen play, maybe one, maybe two back. I was an assistant at Illinois State in the early 90s. It was everybody was running motion offense, especially people from the Midwest. It was, brought up in Bobby Knight and Indiana basketball. And so the evolution has been mind-boggling. I look at our play call list now and darn near everything. Now we have motion, and I think that's really helped us this year. We added the Virginia motion in the off season, and so we have something to go to when the ball screen stuff isn't working. But the sets, darn near every set we have has some type of ball screen action in it. My last year at Gonzaga, we ran actually the last 2 years was this ball screen continuity that we had kind of gotten from Europe, from Tel Aviv Maccabi, and it was funny. We had success with it, and we had played, I think, 6 teams in the Big 12, and by the end of the year, half the Big 12 was running, some part of that offense, and so things just kind of go in waves. I think one of the reasons I think it worked so well at Gonzaga is we had really good players, but it's amazing how it's evolved, and now all the different angles, step-up screens, flat screens, instead of just your normal ball screen. I mean, there's all these other different variations that have evolved from just a simple ball screen.
So, yeah, is that an NBA influence? Is it a European influence? Why did it catch fire like that?
I think probably both, just the NBA and Europe. Like I said, this continuity ball screen offense that we ran that last year at Gonzaga was from Tel Aviv Maccabi, and the coach was David Black, who's now the coach of the Cavaliers. And so we watched a bunch of tape and film, talked with those people at Maccabi Tel Aviv, and to try to understand it, and then try to put our own little twist on it. But I think both Europe and the NBA, you're trying to find ways to stay on the cutting edge of how people are defending things. I mean, again, I go back to thinking just like ball screen defense. We had one way to do it. Now, if you don't have 4, 5, 6 ways of doing it, you struggle just because of different angles and being put in different positions on the floor and having people that can stretch the defense with shooting the basketball, so you can't help so much from this area or that area. And so we all have probably, like I said, 5 or 6 different ways how to defend ball screens. So just depending on your how mobile your 4s and 5s are.
Yeah, what makes it such a tough thing to defend?
Well, just I think the hardest thing is when you have a 4 that can stretch the defense, or where your help's going to come from, because people have spaced the floor of the European and NBA influences to where the spacing is so good that a really good guard can tell immediately where the help's coming from on a roll. And so you're going to have to give something up. And so, like, to me, like Southern Illinois does a great job of corralling the ball screen, is I guess the best way to describe it, with high hands, not allowing you to throw ahead, not allowing you to throw behind to the fill. And so that would be one example of how somebody's done things differently. Very few people can switch 1 through 5 a ball screen. That, like a San Diego State, was really good at that over the last 5 years. And so there's no advantage or disadvantage. And so, again, it's just putting such good shooters around the ball screens, wherever they may be placed on the floor, to make it very difficult to help. And when you help, the spacing is good enough to where you can read immediately where the ball needs to be skipped to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Your next question comes from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
You guys take on Loyola and you're tied for that 6th and 7th spot. How big a game is that for you guys to avoid Thursday night in St. Louis?
Well, I think where we're at right now, it is a big deal. I'm hoping somewhere down the road it's not as big a deal. But where we're at right now, it would be certainly a step in the right direction. And where we were at Christmas, and how far we've come in a short period of time, it would be a big deal. But we're simply just trying to focus. And I told the guys after the game yesterday, just come back Monday, and we're going to figure out what we need to work on as a team and with each individual, and that's the only thing we're going to focus on, just as we have since Christmas. So, but in the big picture, it would be a big deal. And it's funny how I think Drake's kind of been in that situation, playing in that Thursday game in the past, and it would be nice to be able to get out of that this year. But carrying on, we've got bigger aspirations than the Thursday night game, hopefully.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great. That was your final question. Thank you for your time this morning.
Great, guys. Thank you.
All right. Good luck this week. Missouri State's Paul Lusk is on the line with us. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Mike.
Thanks for being patient. We're running along again this week. I appreciate your patience.
No problem.
Let's talk about your games this week. You open up with Bradley on Wednesday and then close out the week regular season against Loyola in Chicago. Talk about Bradley, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Well, we'll obviously have respect for Bradley. I think they're playing better. They got most of their guys back. We lost to them earlier in their year at their place. Warren Jones hurt us. But really, Mike, it's just about what we're going to do. I mean, obviously we've struggled, and we struggled mightily yesterday. And, we have to play better basketball. We didn't compete, and if we don't compete, the same thing will happen again. And that hadn't been a real problem with this group. We've struggled, but they've played hard and tried to compete. But I thought yesterday was just a major letdown, and we're going to have to correct that today and tomorrow if we're going to give ourselves a chance against Bradley.
Thank you, Paul. Let's get now to the questions for Coach Lusk. Questions for Paul Lusk from the media.
Press star, then the number 1 to ask a question. Star, then the number 1. Your first question comes from the line of Dave Reynolds with the Peoria Journal-Star.
Paul, I know it's been a while ago, but what can you take from that first meeting with Bradley? What can you do to improve on the outcome?
Well, we struggled to score, Dave, I think much like Bradley. We had opportunities in that game, and we got some turnovers. We missed some free throws. They got going a little bit the first half, but we had multiple opportunities. Warren Jones got away from us a little bit, but we're gonna have to play good basketball. I mean, we don't have a big margin of error. And number one, we have to compete and play hard. We've got guys that are really struggling from the field, guys that we felt like can make shots for us, but they're not. So when you shoot so poorly, you've got to be able to try to defend and get stops and get rebounds and not turn the basketball over, and that's what we're going to be focusing on.
I know you've had a lot of health issues this year. Where would you rate your team at this point? Who's everybody pretty much back, or?
Yeah, I mean we're back as far as we can be. I thought last week we had a nice game against Indiana State, and we thought we could string together something. And then, as I said, Dave, we did not perform yesterday, and very disappointing effort by our guys. And I think guys hung their heads when they didn't make shots, and then it just kind of snowballed on us. And this group hasn't done that, and they've been through some adversity. They've played hard. It's been tough. We've been handed, but they've played hard and tried to compete. But I thought yesterday we absolutely laid down, and it's really unacceptable, and we're going to have to get it fixed if we're going to have a chance Wednesday.
Thanks, Paul.
You bet.
Oh, that was your only line of questioning. Thanks for your time. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Coach Barry Hinson of Southern Illinois joins us. The Salukis have 2 games this week, including one Wednesday at Illinois State and back at home Saturday to play Drake. Good morning, Barry.
Morning, Mike.
Let's talk about your team and traveling to Illinois State on Wednesday. Preview the game for us, and then we'll open it up for some questions.
Well, this will be a game that we'll have to play extremely well because we beat them at our place, and Dan's got those guys playing really well. They're just coming off a good victory, and they're sitting there in the race for third place. And I know it'll be a big environment for us to go in and try to compete. So we're looking forward to the challenge.
Thank you, Coach. Let's get now to the questions for you. Questions for Coach Barry Hinson.
Please press star then the number 1 to ask your question. Our first question comes from Jim Benson with the Bloomington Pentagraph.
Could you just talk about Anthony Bean's season this season, and has he had a good a season as you would have hoped he would, or how tough has it been, obviously, with a lot of young players around him?
Well, I think you probably just answered the question by how you stated that. He's had a roller coaster season, and a lot of that has to do with he's had a big target on his back, and he hasn't really had anybody to take up the slack around him, and consequently, it's been twofold. He's felt a little bit of the pressure. He's probably forced the issue several times just because he's trying so hard, and when you get to that point and you start doing that, then all of a sudden you lose your ground as a basketball player. And he's if it weren't the one thing that I really appreciate about Anthony every day is that I don't ever have to worry about him getting jump started for practice or playing a game. I don't have to give him any type of motivation. Every time he comes onto the practice floor, every time he comes on the game floor, he gives us his best effort.
Thanks, Barry.
Your next question comes from Todd Hefferman with the Southern Illinois newspaper.
Hey, Barry, have you had a chance to practice since Saturday? Have you get a sense of how the guys are going to responded?
We practiced today. We normally take Sundays off, and we just followed our same routine. We will practice today, and I know I said this the other day, but we'll find out who's going to practice and compete hard, and those will be the guys that we play when we go to Illinois State.
Do you expect Jalen to practice? Any improvement from him?
I have not talked with our trainer. He comes in and gives me a report every day, literally in about 15 minutes. So I expect to know that before we practice.
Well, Coach, if you could talk about Reggie Lynch, a guy that's had some foul trouble with Illinois State, I think he had 16 and 8 first time he played you. What kind of difference does he make for them defensively?
Well, I think the thing is he's a shot blocker, and you're not going to get anything around the basket. So, and here's the other thing that he does so well. It's not so much the shots that he blocks; it's the shots that he alters. It's almost like in the NFL a hurried sack for a linebacker. I mean, he puts pressure on you continuously, and that's what he does best.
Well, you know, you can't just go away from your inside game. How do you alter that with him in the lineup or him on the floor?
Well, you know, I think one of the things you have to be more efficient in what you do. You just can't turn around and shoot over him. So you've got to find other ways to attack him or to attack the defense as a whole instead of just focusing on scoring on him. If you focus just scoring on him, specifically just us, that's not a recipe for success at all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Barry, that's all for you this week. Appreciate your time this morning.
All right,
all right, bye-bye. Marty Simmons of Evansville is with us. Evansville playing at Northern Iowa on Wednesday, and then the Purple Aces back at home Saturday to play Illinois State. Morning, Marty.
Morning, Mike.
Let's talk about Northern Iowa, a challenge up there. They have won 17 straight home games, and they've won 15 straight games overall since losing to you in a game that you had. They had a big lead on you. You came back and won it, but they haven't lost since. It's been a long time since you played them. What's different for both teams?
Yeah, they're obviously very, very good. I've said it a million times. There isn't anybody that I respect any more than Ben. They got a talented group. Tuttle's a phenomenal player. He's having a phenomenal year, but he's got guys around him that are smart, tough, really skilled. They've got some good athleticism. You know, they're hard as heck to score against, and they're very efficient and share the ball offensively. I mean, they're an outstanding team.
Thank you, Marty. Let's get to the questions now for you. Questions for Coach Marty Simmons.
Your first question comes from Cole Claiborne with the Evansville Courier and Press.
Hey, Coach. How you doing? A little bit off the beaten path here, but today actually marks the 30th anniversary of Coach Knight's famous chair throwing incident. You had a first-row seat to that event. I was just wondering if you could maybe share some of your memories of that memorable event as we kind of we're doing something here at the paper, just kind of remembering that historic event.
Well, number one, I just turned 50 a couple days ago, so my memory is not quite what it was. But, you know, that was, I believe, the Purdue game, and that rivalry, you know, is one of the best in all of college basketball. And the way I remember it, again, quite foggy, but I dove on a loose ball, and I think Purdue guy dove on me, and Alford dove on him, and they come out there with a foul, and we were getting beat, and pretty hostile environment. And next thing I knew, I saw the chair sliding across the court.
What was going through your mind? I mean, that's just such a bizarre thing to see. Even whenever we watch it now, to see a chair flying across the gym. I mean, can you at all remember kind of just how bizarre maybe you thought it was?
Well, I mean, he just kind of slid it across. I mean, it wasn't. I'm not amazement, I guess. I don't know what the answer would be. I mean, just, you know, never seen it done before, I guess.
All right. Thanks, Coach.
Your next question comes from Carson Teague with the Waterloo Courier.
Hey, Marty, just as the only team to beat Northern Iowa this year in conference play, can you draw a little bit of confidence from that as you play them here the second time around?
Oh, you know, we played that game so long ago, and you know, I mean, we'll try. I mean, that's, you know, we got beat pretty handily last night, but really, it's about us. We got tremendous respect for them. They're good. I mean, we got to be better at the things that we do. I mean, every team you play is going to challenge you, and you got to step up to those challenges, whether it's cutting, screening, delivering it, blocking out, whatever it may be, and you know, we just have to do the things that we do much better.
Okay, thanks.
Marty, that was your last question. Thank you for your time this morning. Good luck this week.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, we'll see you. We're joined now by Loyola coach Porter Moser. Good morning, Porter. How are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good. Let's talk about your week. You have Drake on Wednesday, and then following up with a home game against Missouri State. Drake's big game. They took you to the wire at your place earlier in the year. Talk about what you need to do to win up there.
Well, I think obviously that was a long time ago, and I just, you give Ray so much credit. That team of Drake, of how much they've improved, and that's what you want to, especially with young guys. You want to keep bringing them along to try to keep their arrow going up. And I tell you, Drake's one of the most improved teams in the league by far. And they're leading the league in three-point shooting percentage. They're leading the league in free throws. They shoot it so well. They get to the foul line. So they're very dangerous when they're shooting the ball like that. And just playing with confidence, and you got to give their staff credit for the improvement as the season went on.
Thank you, Porter. Let's get now to the questions for you from the media. Questions for Coach Porter Moser.
Press star 1 to ask a question. Again, that's star 1 to ask your question. Again, press star 1 if you would like to ask a question.
Coach, looks like there are no questions in the queue for you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks, Mike.
We'll see you soon. We are currently holding for Gino Ford. We'll have Gino on momentarily. Bradley this week will play at Missouri State on Wednesday, and then closing out the regular season with the home game against Indiana State. Still getting voicemail on Gino's cell. We'll have Gino in just a second. We're going to go ahead and jump ahead to Coach Dan Muller of Illinois State. We'll have Dan on momentarily, and we'll work to get Gino on as well. And we do have Dan Muller of Illinois State with us on the line. Illinois State opening up its week Wednesday with a home game against Southern Illinois, and then closing out the regular season at Evansville on Saturday. Morning, Dan.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
Good. Let's talk about the SIU game. They got you down there, but what needs to happen differently for you guys to get a win on Wednesday?
Well, we got to play a lot better, play with a sense of urgency. Anthony Bean and it really hurt us in the first game. Lavender also played a terrific first half. Really, they just came out with more of an attack mentality than we did, and down the stretch, too many turnovers. So, got to do a better job with their guards for sure.
Thank you, Coach. Let's get now to the questions for you. Questions for Coach Dan Muller.
Please press star then the number 1 to ask a question. Star then the number 1. Your first question comes from the line of Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey Dan, as the way things play out over the next couple of weeks, next two games, you guys could be third, you could be fourth, you could be fifth. How big a difference after being 1-2 or not being in Thursday night? How big a difference are any of those positions for you guys?
Hey, Harry. Oh, I don't know. I mean, what time you play, of course, on Friday affects things a little bit. Obviously, the top two teams in our league have separated themselves from everybody else. After that, I can't say I want to play one team more than the other. They're all very good teams. So our focus, more so than our seeding, is these last two games, finishing the way we want to do, because we can't control, obviously, what Indiana State does, what Evansville does, other than when we play them, or even who's going to get the first or second seed.
And so, I think that's more of maybe us media guys think about, they're playing for third place potentially on Saturday. But that's a big deal. But that wouldn't be a gigantic motivation more than just winning the game.
No, I think that for me in the program, of course, you want to finish strong. We would be being tied for third, being alone in third, losing the tiebreaker in third, and your seeding as a difference. We want to finish as high as we can. And so if we're tied for third with whoever it is, we're still tied for third. The seeding comes down to different things. But, yeah, it's important for me to finish as high as we can in conference. And then if you're tied, the seeding is determined by other things. But it is – does that make sense? I know that wasn't stated very eloquently, but we do want to finish as high as we can. And then the seeding at that point, to me, I wouldn't say it matters too much.
Gotcha. Appreciate it, Dan. Thanks.
Okay, Harry. Thank you.
Your next question comes from Todd Hefferman with the Southern Illinois newspaper.
Hey, Dan, Reggie Lynch's foul trouble, what do you emphasize to him, because an aggressive player plays aggressively. So what do you emphasize to him to try to stay away from the cheap fouls?
Yeah, Todd, it's been frustrating some games. He had done a much better job. He was in foul trouble the first time we played Southern Illinois. Since then, he had done a pretty good job with it until the last game. He just lost all discipline last game. 100% the things we focus on as far as follow through on block shots, moving his feet, some rebounding things. And he's got to stop doing that. It comes down to kind of a selfish act by him to get in foul trouble so much, because it's things we've talked about, watched on film, called in practice, and he's got to concentrate more, have a lot more discipline.
Deshaun's been a pretty good scorer for you. Is there anything look different the last two games with him?
He scored better recently. His percentages were way down before the last game. So much for Deshaun is getting out in transition when he can, getting to the rim when he can. His shot has come and gone a little bit. He made a big three this past Saturday. He's got to get to the foul line. He's such a good free throw shooter. So he's got to shoot good percentage. When he shoots a higher percentage for our team, we're a better offensive team. That sounds obvious, but he's a high shot taker on our team. And so we've got to get him to understand the right shots to take and how to get to them, and he did a great job with that this past Saturday.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Brian Bloodworth with WJBC Radio.
Dan.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, you've changed your rotation and shortened your rotation the last few games. Is that a product of getting ready more for the tournament, thinking that way?
Not really, Brian. To be honest, it was just a product of who was playing better. We always look at our last 5-game stats, practices. One thing I try to do as a coach is not to just get set in minutes of rotation once the season starts if other guys deserve more.
Okay, thanks.
It certainly can. And, the bottom line is Mikal and Teddy have been playing very well lately, and we have not been shooting it very well. So Justin has played because of that. So I wouldn't say it's because of the tournament at all. I would just say it's kind of come down to who's playing better and who gives us a better chance to win right now.
Dan, thank you for your time this morning. That was your last question. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, bye-bye. Coach Greg Marshall of Wichita State joins us. The Shockers opening up their week at Indiana State on Wednesday, closing it out regular season against Northern Iowa on Saturday. Morning, Greg. Hello. Hello. Let's talk about Indiana State. You just played them at your place, I don't know, 10 or 12 days ago. Not much has changed since then, or has it? I don't think so. I mean, I think we'll probably see this. I don't know if they've had any injuries. We have not, knock on wood. Actually got a kid back from concussion, Zach Brown. So we're relatively healthy for this time of year. And I don't even know what they did over the weekend. I'm still breaking down Evansville, but I know that they won and are securely in third place. So we anticipate a very good team, a very well-coached team, and, Greg does a wonderful job. Thank you, Greg. Let's get now to the questions for you. Questions for Coach Greg Marshall from the media.
Please press star, then the number 1. Again, that's star, then the number 1. Again, to ask a question, please press star, then the number 1. Your first question comes from Harry Schroeder with the Valley Hoops Insider.
Hey, good morning, Greg. I wonder how fun or exciting it'll be for your team and for Northern Iowa to have game day people at Wichita, and just what that will all be like to for your fans and all that. How excited are you about that?
I think it's going to be great, Harry, for our fans, our community, our university. It's a big-time stage for college basketball. Be a first time for them here at Wichita State, and obviously there's a lot of implications on that game, being senior day, be championship, lock up the number 1 seed in the tournament. So it's a lot of implications, and the fact that they're here is even bigger.
Yeah, and I don't think there's ever been a final game like this where 2 teams in the Valley have been so highly rated, and so it draws a lot of attention. Congratulations. You guys have had a great year.
Thank you. Coach, that's it for your light week. Good luck at Indiana State on Wednesday. We'll see you back down in Wichita on Saturday. Okay, thanks. Thanks, Greg. We were not able to get a hold of Gino, so we'll wrap it up this week, and we'll have Gino on next week. And our pre-tournament call will be at the same time, 10:15 on Monday. We will have a all-conference call on Tuesday for the specialty award winners on Tuesday at 2:30. Same number for both calls. This does conclude this week's call. We'll look forward to hearing from everybody next week. Have the beat writers please stay on the line. We'll have a roundtable of our beat writers, and then we'll see everybody else down the road.